Bruce Dern is a name that many recognize. He's an actor with decades of experience in Hollywood, known for his intense performances. Over the years he's played both villains and heroes, often showing his ability to dive deep into complex characters. Bruce has always had a knack for bringing depth to any role, making audiences feel something real. You might remember him from movies like Nebraska, or The Hateful Eight, where his characters are unpredictable, and sometimes a little bit unsettling. But despite his success, Bruce is more than just the characters he plays. He's a man who's lived a full life, both on and off the screen, with stories to tell that go far beyond his acting career. In this story, however, Bruce's life takes an unexpected turn, one that's more thrilling than anything he's faced in his movies. But this time it's not a script, it's real. It was just another quiet morning for Bruce Dern. He woke up early as he usually did to enjoy the stillness of the world before everything started moving. His small house was nestled in a peaceful part of town, away from the hustle and bustle of city life, a place where he could think, reflect, and enjoy the comfort of solitude. He made himself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the room, and sat by the window, gazing out at the trees. It was one of those rare moments when the world felt still, no meetings, no events, just a little peace in his otherwise busy life. He often found solace in these simple routines. It gave him time to reflect on his career, his family, and the things that mattered most to him. Bruce wasn't expecting anything unusual to happen today. After all, most of his days were spent in this same quiet manner, but today, something was about to change. Something that would shake him in ways he could never have imagined. It was a normal day, but that would soon be far from the truth. Bruce decided to take a walk that afternoon. The weather was mild, the sun shining just enough to make the world feel bright but not too hot. He strolled through the quiet streets, his mind wandering as he thought about old friends, past films, and the twists of fate that had brought him here. As he passed a small cafe, something unusual caught his eye. At a table near the window sat a man who looked exactly like him. Bruce stopped in his tracks. It wasn't just a passing resemblance. This man had the same features, his eyes, his nose, the lines on his face. It was like looking into a mirror, but this was no reflection. The man was casually sipping a coffee, seemingly unaware of Bruce's gaze. For a moment Bruce stood frozen, unsure of what to do. His mind raced. Could this be some kind of strange coincidence? He was no stranger to seeing people who resembled others, but this was different. It wasn't just a face in a crowd. This man looked like him. Bruce slowly approached the table. The stranger didn't seem startled. In fact, he looked up at Bruce, gave a slight nod, and smiled, as if expecting him. A cold shiver ran down Bruce's spine. What was going on? Was this a prank, or something else entirely? He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The encounter was strange, unnerving, and it was just beginning. Bruce walked up to the table, trying to steady his nerves. He wasn't sure what to say. The man sitting there looking so much like him didn't seem surprised at all. In fact, he seemed almost calm. Bruce cleared his throat, trying to gather his thoughts. "Excuse me," Bruce said, his voice steady but laced with curiosity. "I couldn't help but notice, you look just like me." The man looked up, meeting Bruce's gaze. There was a flicker of recognition in his eyes, but it quickly faded into something else, something that was hard for Bruce to read. "I get that a lot," the man replied, his tone casual. "But I'm not sure what you mean. You look like someone I've been meaning to meet." Bruce felt a strange pull to this man. How could anyone look so much like him? He was suddenly filled with questions. Was this some sort of strange coincidence? Or was there more to this than just a passing resemblance? "I'm Bruce Dern," he said, introducing himself, though it felt odd to do so when he was staring at his own reflection. The man smiled, as if Bruce's name wasn't news to him. "I know who you are. I've watched your films." Bruce felt a wave of confusion wash over him. How could this stranger know him so well, yet Bruce had never seen him before? "You know me?" Bruce asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The man nodded, then leaned in slightly. "I know more than you think. In fact, I know things about you, things you might not even remember." Bruce took a step back, his mind racing. What was happening here? Who was this man, and how did he know things about his life? The man leaned back in his chair, still watching Bruce with that calm, almost knowing expression. Bruce felt a twinge of unease, but his curiosity outweighed it. He had to know more. "I know this is strange, Bruce," the man began, his voice low and steady. "But there's something I need to tell you. We're connected in ways you don't understand. And I think it's time you knew the truth." Bruce blinked, still processing what was happening. "What are you talking about?" he asked, feeling the ground beneath him shift as the world around him seemed to blur. The man continued, his eyes never leaving Bruce's. "I'm not just someone who looks like you. I've been following your life for years. And I've learned things about you. About us, things that don't make sense, but they're true. There's a reason we look alike. It's more than just a coincidence." Bruce felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely audible now. "Why do you know so much about me?" The man's gaze softened for a moment, as if trying to decide how much to reveal. "Because," he said slowly, "I've lived a life very similar to yours. In fact, it's almost identical. We share experiences, memories, even dreams. But we're not exactly the same. There are differences, of course, but I've always been aware of you. I think I've been waiting for this moment." Bruce was speechless. His heart pounded in his chest as his mind scrambled to understand. Could this man really know so much about him? How was it possible? "You're saying we're connected? In what way?" Bruce asked, his voice shaking. The man leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Let's just say that we're not as different as you think. And you're about to find out why." Bruce felt his heart race as the stranger's words hung in the air, heavy and cryptic. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to be revealed, something he wasn't ready to hear. The man sitting across from him seemed completely at ease, but Bruce could feel the weight of the conversation pressing down on him. The man sat back, his gaze never leaving Bruce's. "You still don't understand, do you?" he asked, almost as if amused by Bruce's confusion. "Let me make it clearer. We're not just two people who look alike. We're connected by something deeper, something beyond just appearances." Bruce's mind spun, he opened his mouth to speak but stopped himself, unable to form the words. "What do you mean?" he finally managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. He stranger smiled. A slow, knowing smile. "It's hard to explain, but I'll try. We've lived parallel lives, Bruce. Almost everything about our paths is the same, our careers, our choices, even our fears. But there's one key difference between us. One thing that makes us more than just identical strangers." Bruce's stomach tightened, his thoughts raced, trying to grasp what the man was saying. "What are you talking about? What's the difference?" The stranger leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The difference is that I was never supposed to be here. I was supposed to be." Bruce's mind went blank for a moment, the words barely registering. "What? Everything about my life has been a shadow of yours." The man continued. "Every decision I've made, every role I've played in my life, has been a mimicry of yours. But somewhere along the way, fate took a turn. I was supposed to live your life, Bruce, and you were supposed to live mine. But something went wrong." Bruce felt as though the floor was crumbling beneath him. The man's words felt impossible, like something out of a movie. Was this a joke? Some kind of elaborate prank? But the stranger's eyes were serious, his expression unreadable. "I don't understand," Bruce said, his voice strained. "Are you telling me, you're me? That somehow we switched lives?" The man nodded slowly. "In a way, yes. But not exactly. It's more complicated than that. We were meant to be the same person living the same life. But fate twisted things. You got my life, and I got yours. I've watched from the sidelines, trying to find my way back, trying to figure out how to fix this." Bruce's mind was reeling. He was still trying to process the idea that this man had somehow lived his life in parallel. The thought was too surreal to grasp, yet the way the stranger spoke made it seem almost possible. "You're saying, we switched places?" Bruce repeated, still trying to make sense of it all. "How is that even possible?" The stranger gave a small sad smile. "I don't know how it happened, but I know this, it's not a coincidence. We're linked in ways that go beyond what you can imagine. And now I'm here to fix what went wrong. Bruce's thoughts were racing faster than he could control. He was struggling to catch up with everything the man was saying. What did this all mean? What was going to happen next? I need your help, the man said, his tone more serious now. We need to figure out how to make things right, before it's too late. Bruce sat there, frozen. His mind was a blur of questions, each one more impossible than the last. He stared at the man, his double, and tried to understand what had just been revealed. Everything he knew, everything he had believed about his life, was suddenly in question. He had been an actor, a father, a husband, but now, this stranger was telling him that his whole existence might have been someone else's life, someone else's reality. It felt like his entire world was shifting beneath him. I don't know if I can believe this, Bruce finally said, his voice shaky. You're telling me that we're connected, that we switched lives, and I don't know what to think. This feels insane. The man nodded, understanding in his eyes. I know how this sounds. It's hard to believe. But I've spent my entire life trying to piece this together. I've watched you live the life I was supposed to have, and I've waited for this moment. For us to meet. For us to understand what happened. Bruce stood up suddenly, pacing the small space, his thoughts were racing. Could it really be true? Could everything he had lived, everything he had achieved, just be a reflection of someone else's life? The idea made his stomach turn. But the stranger's calmness, his certainty, made Bruce stop in his tracks. He turned to face the man. If this is true, then what does it mean for me? Am I supposed to just give my life back to you? What happens to me? The man looked at him with sadness in his eyes. I'm not asking you to give up anything, Bruce. But we both need to understand this. We need to find a way to fix what was broken. I've lived in your shadow for so long, and now it's time to make things right, for both of us. Bruce ran a hand through his hair, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over him. His mind was overwhelmed by this revelation. The idea that he wasn't living his own life, that his experiences were shared with this man sitting before him, was something he couldn't process all at once. I don't know where to begin, Bruce admitted, but I can't just ignore what you've said. Something about all this, it feels too real, too deep. The man nodded again, his face serious. I understand. But we have to figure this out, Bruce. We don't have much time. The longer we wait, the harder it will be to fix. Bruce felt a weight settle on his shoulders. He had no idea what to do next, but one thing was clear, his life, as he knew it, had just been turned upside down. Bruce left the cafe, his mind still reeling. The conversation with the stranger had left him shaken. Every step he took felt heavy, as if the world around him had become unfamiliar. The streets, once a comforting backdrop to his daily life, now felt alien, as if he was walking through someone else's reality. He couldn't stop thinking about what the man had said, that they had switched lives, that everything he had lived, everything he had known, might not have been his. Was it possible? Was he really just living in someone else's shoes? Bruce tried to focus, but the questions kept swirling in his head. Could he just walk away from this and pretend nothing had happened? Or did he have to face whatever truth the stranger had revealed? He didn't have answers, only more questions. And with each passing minute, the uncertainty grew stronger. He reached his home, and stood in front of the door for a long moment. The place where he had always felt safe now felt different. He wasn't sure if it was his mind playing tricks on him, or if the stranger had truly shaken something loose inside him. One thing was clear, he couldn't ignore the encounter. It had changed him. Whether he was ready or not, Bruce now had to figure out what this meant for his life, and how to move forward. The twist in his story had only just begun, and it was far from over. As Bruce sat in his quiet home, his thoughts returned to the strange encounter with the man who looked exactly like him. The day had left him with more questions than answers, and he couldn't shake the feeling that his entire life had been upended. How could something like this happen? How could he have lived a life that wasn't even his? He leaned back in his chair, trying to make sense of everything. Was he supposed to help this man fix whatever had gone wrong, or was it all just a wild coincidence? The more he thought about it, the more he realized how little he truly knew about his own life, his own story. The encounter had left him changed, aware of something bigger than himself, something that went beyond anything he had ever experienced. He couldn't let it go, even if he tried. This twist in his life was something that wouldn't fade away. Not anytime soon.